So I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you again to Michael, Land of Medicine Buddha, everyone who's supporting this. And I again want to point out, as some of you were coming on this evening, a wonderful point made by Jane, who's part of our group, that I was asking people informally about this past week and how the meditations went. We were focusing on the time of death is uncertain meditation. And Jane was just talking about a friend of hers with over 80 with difficult health, talking about death. And Jane was talking about preparing for death. So I want to make this distinction. It's not that Buddhists are overly obsessed with talking about death. However, understanding death and impermanence is a natural course of life and very helpful and beneficial to make meaning in your life right now, in every day that you live. So in a sense, it's not that we're talking about death all the time and that's the focus. The focus is preparing for a death. We're focused on death because it's helpful for us to prepare for death. So I think that's the key, is that word prepare. It's a preparation. The more you can focus on it, we already talked about the benefits of thinking and remembering death. The main part, not to frighten you, to motivate your practice like that. So we looked at the 9-point death meditation as a brief review, talked a bit about reincarnation and some reasonings for that. And I'd like to start right now, not only with our motivation, but a brief meditation on the continuum of consciousness that is part of one of the meditations. Mine is slightly different, so I'm just going to lead this one. Please relax. Find a comfortable posture. And I find this meditation can be helpful to give us a little insight into the possibility of reincarnation. This is called the Continuum of Consciousness. And again, our consciousness, our mind exists on a gross level, a subtle level, and a most subtle level, as does our body. So what we're able to track really are the grosser levels of consciousness. So please find a comfortable posture. Lightly close your eyes. And please allow yourself a few deep inhalations, a few deep exhalations as you bring yourself more focused into the space, using the inhalations to open up space in any places you note you're holding tension in the body. Using the exhalation to release that tension as much as possible. Think about your motivation right now for joining this class, and also for exploring the continuum of consciousness. If it helps us have a little insight into the possibility of reincarnation, then we may end up more invested in our present experience to plant deeper seeds of virtue for our future lives. So this can be really helpful for helping us reach enlightenment quickly. And that's a wonderful means for benefiting all living beings. Just explore that motivation if you'd like. Feel free to include that in your own or another motivation, setting the mind right now in this most positive space as possible. So I'd like you right now to explore a 5-minute experience of your last week. And you might even take right now, not even 5 minutes, but let's just start with our current sitting position. Let's just start there, this present moment. I'd like you to trace back, first of all, the activities of your body, getting into the position that you're in right now. So if you're seated on whatever kind of chair or cushion, think about actually how you got into that seat, the different positions of your body on a more subtle level, but understand that they were motivated. They were caused by moments of your consciousness. So for instance, that last moment when you took your seat is the mind dictating to the brain to activate neurological activity that tells the muscles what they need to do. The idea, I want to sit down now, puts the body in a certain position, activates nerves, activates the muscular system. Slowly and if we really want to trace on a more subtle level, you can really notice all the positions your body was in as it was sitting down. But prior to that, there's other activation to get you into the position to sit down. Prior to that, you may not have even been, you may have been moving toward the seat, cushion, or chair. Prior to that, coming from another room. So I'd like you to just trace back now, just a few moments, noting the connectivity. So some of it will be activity of the body, but can you remember what was activated in the mind? What were the thoughts? And notice that that particular thought that you had a thought that preceded it that caused it. And there was another thought before that one, and another thought before that one. I just like you to notice that trajectory of your consciousness going back a little bit in time. I know this isn't easy to do. Let's go back a little further. Take an incident in your past week or month. Doesn't have to be any dramatic incident. It just could be an ordinary time of the day you got in the car to drive to the store. So sit in your car, or you're going out for a walk, and walk yourself backward to that thought, I'm going to take a walk now. I'm going to go to the store. Or even before that, when you knew it was on your schedule for the day. And just notice again the connectivity between those moments of mind, the same as moments of consciousness. And that each moment of consciousness is preceded by a moment that caused it. And so let's break it down to a slightly more subtle experience. For instance, you're walking out of your house. If you lock the door to your house as you leave, just think about pulling the door shut or closing the door. And then the thought, I need to lock the door. I will lock the door, which then causes movement of the arms, the hands to take the key, if it's that kind of door. The movement, putting the key in the latch, in the lock, knowing which way to turn it is activated by the mind, actually. Knowing I need to turn it that way. Or opening the car door, the arm reaching out. Why? It's dictated. I want to open the car door starts in the mind. And that causes me to then activate muscular activity, nervous activity, neurological activity, reaching the arm in a certain way, knowing how to open the door. So see if you can break down some of the activities, again, noting the mind's involvement, and another moment of mind, another moment of consciousness, Another moment of the consciousness, always there with whatever the body's doing. But also get a sense, moving backward, that every moment of consciousness has a moment before, a preceding moment that causes it. See if you can get a sense of that. So we're going to go back further. I'd like you to go back, if you can, to your first childhood memory. Doesn't matter what age you are, for earliest memory. And just take a few moments of that memory, go to the end of that memory and walk yourself back in your mind. Again, noting that continuity of consciousness. So not only does one moment cause the next moment, and then there's another moment and another moment, but each moment, each present moment is preceded by a moment of consciousness that causes it, which is preceded by another moment of consciousness that causes it, and back and back. And if you go further back, if you're noting, there is some mind there that creates something. There is a mind, seems to be operating, thinking, having ideas. And each moment of it is preceded by another moment of that consciousness or that mind. So what about what I can't remember before that? For instance, being inside your mother developing. You're developing as a fetus. Most people don't remember, but can you just imagine the moments of consciousness there, what was happening? Just take a few moments of that and imagine. What if you imagine that first moment of mind there at conception? At your conception of this life, that seems to be the first moment of consciousness. And Buddhism says the mind is there in its most subtle experience, its clear light nature. And it has a unique way of walking together with the body, but it's separate from the body in its most subtle form, which exists in a sense as a subtle wind energy. A subtle wind energy. In Tibetan, we would call it lung, wind, that has an active physical nature that allows that fertilization to take place. Right? Physical in nature, it creates your body. Like in the Tibetan, in the Ayurvedic system, they may call it prana. In the Chinese system, qi. So we've heard that before. In the mind, in its most subtle experience, its clear light nature, not physical, has a unique way of mounting the most subtle wind like a rider on a horse. And then they are always together, separate, distinct entities of one physical, one not. But it's the mind mounted on the most subtle wind, most subtle mind mounted there, that is what dictates how that wind is going to develop, how that body will form, how that life will be. And it's that most subtle mind that dictates all of that based on all the karmic seeds or imprints that are planted in that consciousness from previous moments, previous activities of the body, speech, and mind of that being. So if you want to go back to that first moment of consciousness in this life, at conception, you may have had a thought and noticed that all these other moments you just checked, that we just briefly looked at now, had a previous moment of consciousness that caused it. What about the moment of mind at conception? Could that have had a previous moment of consciousness that caused it? So please relax. Slowly, when you're ready, please open your eyes. If you'd like to unmute for a moment, what do you think about that first moment of consciousness at conception from that meditation? Could there be a previous moment causing it? Any feelings from the meditation? What do you think?
I think,
Do you think there's something before that first moment of consciousness at conception?
yes, there is. And whatever that moment of consciousness was, I was the one that was going to live out of the 7 births that my mother had. I was the one that was going to live. Interesting. That was my thought.
Sorry, can you speak up a little bit? It's a little soft.
I beg your pardon. I'm still in the meditation. Yes, indeed, there was a previous moment of consciousness. And that moment of consciousness in my mind, or that moment of consciousness was, I was going to be the baby that was going to live. My mother had 7 full-term pregnancies, and I was the one that lived, the poor woman, but I lived. And
so
that
the other ones did not.
they all died at term.
Oh my goodness.
Terrible, terrible. But whatever that moment of consciousness was, whatever that came forward, that took me through 9 months and I lived. And that was what I was thinking, Venerable. Thank you.
Was a survivor, right? Obviously the karma, some imprint to survive, some cause there to make it. Right. Amazing. Were you number 7?
4.
Number 4. Wow. Wow, your mom, poor woman, amazing. I mean, great that she got you, but wow, it's a lot of suffering to go through. Yes. Anybody else have any experience? Anybody like, no, there's nothing before. I didn't really get the, it's a difficult meditation to do. Any other comments? Oh, we have a raised hand. Is it Andrea?
Andrea, yes. Yeah. So
how do you say your name?
Andrea, doesn't matter. Not fast. So what came to me is like, yeah, why not? I'm not feeling super convinced, but I can see like, yeah, why not?
Okay. Sure. That was actually my first feeling about it when I did that meditation long ago, was all of a sudden I thought, it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
But, you know, like it could be that, you know, it does seem like all these other moments have something that creates, so why would it just stop there at conception when so Buddhism, again, just to go in, it has a cause and effect relationship, karma. Buddhism has a strong belief in karma, and that karma means action. It's a Sanskrit term that means action. It's simply the movement of mind. I mean, I'm not saying it's simple, but it is the movement of mind, your mind. And there's a cause and effect, cause and result relationship. And so Buddhism says, whether you believe in karma or not, it's a law. It's happening anyway. And that means that everything we think, say, and do, Buddhism says definitely has a result in the future, definitely leaves an imprint that will ripen in the future. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. What I'd like to do right now, let me see if I can find this again. I got it all ready. Here we go. I would like to read to you a little bit from Heart Spoon. Okay, this was a reading, one of the supplementary materials. If you can read this poem from Kabji Pabonka Rinpoche, it's a beautiful poem about death. It's very traditionally old time written, you know, so the language and things, but it's a really, the more I read Heart Spoon, the first time it didn't resonate as much, but the more I read it, it's a meditation unto itself. Let me explain a little bit about Heart Spoon. And this is from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, a little bit about Heart Spoon. Why is it called Heart Spoon, for one? When you're eating, Rinpoche says, okay, you use a small spoon to extract the very best portion of the food in front of you. Rinpoche says, similarly, this teaching on impermanence and death by Kabji Pabonka Dechi Ningbo, they would call him Pabonka Rinpoche. Pabonka Rinpoche, and I don't know, when I read this document, can you see me on the screen or no? Does it cover up?
No screen yet. You haven't shared.
So now can you see me or no?
Can see you.
Still see me, great, okay. So Pabonka Denshi Nimpo, or Pabonka Rinpoche, is the Lama that gave the teaching that turned into liberation in the palm of your hand. He gave that teaching around 1945, I believe, in Lhasa. And so a lot of us are familiar with those books, and the 1-volume wisdom version or the 3-volume other version, but liberation in the palm of your hand, that is a formidable Lam Rim text, and kind of, in a sense, our Bible, as we'd say about the Lam Rim. So he wrote Heart Spoon. And what Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche says is this Kabji Pabonka Rinpoche helps you extract the most precious essence from this human life, the ability to secure the happiness of all future lives, liberation from cyclic existence, and enlightenment for the sake of all living beings, of all sentient beings. Okay. One of my lamas, Geshe Gelton, who had lived in the Los Angeles, California area for years. He hosted His Holiness the Dalai Lama many times. He founded a center in Long Beach, California that is still there. Thupten Dargiling, I think it's called. He was a beautiful Lama and he had a very strong connection with Vajrapani Institute. So Geshe would come every year when I was there and he would teach, and I became very close with him. And he told me he was at the teaching in 1945 with Kyabji Pabonka Rinpoche at that teaching. And his experience, he said that he saw Kyabji Pabonka Rinpoche levitate off the throne during the teaching. That's how powerful this being was, Pabonka Rinpoche. So quite significant. So again, going on from Lama Zopa Rinpoche about heart spoon, the evil thought of the worldly concerns. So we've talked about those, the 8 worldly dharmas, supported by the concept of permanence, okay? It's constantly attacking us. It's constantly manipulating us, interfering with our dharma practice, okay? It prevents us, it prevents the actions of our daily life from becoming pure dharma. So the advice of this great Lama that's contained in this beautiful poem, kind of teaching meditation, is extremely powerful in destroying the concept of permanence, you know, as well as those negative thoughts of the worldly concerns, you know, pain and pleasure, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and dishonor, we looked at before. So again, reading this, Rinpoche says, reading this teaching is similar to seeing a corpse. It brings your mind back to earth, okay? From our normal state of distraction, our normal state of busying ourselves up with all the activities of all the wasted activities that we tend to do a lot of. So instead of being distracted by wrong conceptions, Rinpoche says you're caused to think deeply about your forthcoming death and what will happen to your consciousness at that time, and what kind of life your next one will be. So such thoughts lead to the realization you must practice Dharma continuously from now on. It's the only way to ensure a happy death. So these are some extracts from Rinpoche talking about this from the 90s. Let me read a little bit of Heart Spoon. And I just want to, let me just share my screen for a moment so you can see Kyabji Pabonka Rinpoche. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you. I must show you this first. You ready? Okay. This should be on the marquee. A student sent this to me once because with death, we kind of forget, but sometimes I feel like it should be, you know, announced there, death, coming soon to a body near you. There it is. So I was so glad that somebody sent that. I thought it was really cute. Okay, so Heart Spoon. I just want to show you Kyabji Pabonka Rinpoche is right here. Okay. See if I can make that bigger. Okay. So there he is, and a formidable character and amazing. And I never met him, obviously, but I have him in my merit field because of Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. I've done so many meditations from it over and over that have shifted my mind. He also was the root guru of a teacher some of you may have heard of called Reba Rinpoche. I know some of you know him, and he taught a lot at Land of Medicine Buddha, who's hosting this teaching. He was an incredible being. He was one of my very close Lama to me. And actually, now that I think about it, he's the first person that told me to teach at Land of Medicine Buddha and kind of made me teach one teaching there. That was the first time I taught in 1992. And I was terrified. You know, knew nothing. I mean, I still know nothing, but I knew a lot less of nothing then, and a lot more of nothing, perhaps. But he kind of, there was something, he wasn't feeling well, he was sick, and then he said, you teach this session. And if your teacher tells you to teach, you don't really have any way out of that. You have to follow the advice. And I was just petrified, you know, like, what am I possibly going to teach? And it was in the Land of Medicine Buddha Gompa. And this was his root guru. And he said that what they did is, this was the old traditional way that you learned. So they had lived in little hermitages and huts. Sarame Monastery, which was located in Lhasa, along with, so there were Sera Monastery, Drepung, and Ganden, the three big Gelugpa monasteries. Sera and Drepung were close in the Lhasa region, and Ganden was a little bit outside. You can still visit these monasteries today. They're being rebuilt. Sarame, they had a little hermitage with little huts around the mountain and little caves. And then Pabonka Rinpoche would teach them a little bit of the Lam Rim. And then for a month, they'd go off and meditate on it. Right. And then a month later, they'd all come back and check in, and he would ask them about their experiences, you know, to see what kind of realizations they had. And then based on that level of their realizations, if they got it and got some insight, he would give them another level of the Lam Rim. And then they go back for another month. And that was traditionally how it was done. And Reba Rinpoche told me about that, what happened. And so we were trying to, at Vajrapani many years ago, try to make a little hermitage for Westerners to do long-term Lam Rim retreat with him as a guiding Lama. And at one point we were trying to build some, you know, structures like that to do that. So you really need a lot of merit to do something like that. It's a wonderful experience. Unfortunately, now I think the degenerate time, we're more and more moving away from that, but it can still happen. I never give up hope. I never give up hope that we can create that like that. Okay, Kabji Pabonka Rinpoche. So please, if you'd like, just reflect. I'd like you to just reflect on this. You can just close your eyes if you like. I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Ah, the hurt. Kind Lama, look to this pitiful one. How I behave and how I've cheated myself my entire life. Please look upon this mindless one with compassion. The essential advice to give yourself, heart spoon. Keep it deep within your heart. Don't be distracted. Don't be distracted. Reflect upon the state of your life from the essential drop at your heart. Since beginningless cyclic existence, which hasn't ended up to now, though you've experienced countless cycles of rebirths, just so many variations on happiness and pain, you've achieved not the slightest of benefit from them. And though at present you've attained leisure and fortune so difficult to find, always till now they've finished and been lost, have been empty and without meaning. Now, if you care about yourself, the time has come to practice the essence of future happiness, which is virtuous actions. You appear so capable, smart, and clever, but you're a fool. As long as you cling to the child's play of the appearances of this life, suddenly you're overwhelmed by the fearful Lord of Death. And without hope or means to endure, there's nothing you can do. This is going to happen to you. Because you think, I'm not going to die for some time. I'm not going to die for some time. While you're distracted by the never-ending activities of this life, suddenly the fearful Lord of Death arrives, announcing, now it's time to die. This is going to happen to you. Though you make arrangements saying tomorrow, tomorrow, just then suddenly you have to go. This is going to happen to you. And without choice, leaving behind in disarray, you're left off work, left food and drink, you have to depart. This is going to happen to you. There's no time other than today to spread your bedding and go off to sleep. Upon your last bed, you fall like an old tree, and others, unable to turn you with their lily-soft hands, tug at your clothes and blanket, this is going to happen to you. So I'm going to stop there. But again, feel free on your own to continue reading. I'll read a little bit more in the last couple sessions as well. And it's over and over that this corpse that you see, this will be you in the future. Really, in some ways it's very strong, but it's really powerful for the mind to think that, think about all of our distractions, all the things when we go, tomorrow, I'll do the practice tomorrow. I don't want to do it today. And then the next thing that happens is you die. Then too late, right? Okay. What I want to talk about now, what happens when we die? What's the death process? We're going to talk about these 8 visions that happen as the gross consciousness dissolves into the subtle consciousness, into the clear light of death. Its most subtle experience of the mind. Most subtle. There are inner visions that accompany what happens, these dissolutions. And the elements are basically dissolving that support the body and mind. Okay, so here's what happens. 4 elements, earth, water, fire, and air, cease functioning. From the grosser and more subtle, at the same time as our 5 aggregates are absorbing, okay? Aggregate means collection. When I say 5 aggregates, I'm referring to 1 form aggregate, the body, and 4 mental aggregates. And that's what makes up our body and mind. That's how Tibetan Buddhism thinks about it. Mind and body are 5 aggregates. Again, the body is the form aggregate. We understand that. The mind is made up of 4 mental aggregates, which are feeling, it's number 1. Discriminatory awareness, number 2. Number 3, consciousness. And number 4, compositional factors. So what does that all mean? Okay, feeling. Feeling is not emotion. Feeling is simply pain, pleasure, and neutral. That's how we come into contact with things first. We gravitate to what is pleasurable. We avert from what is painful. And then we have a lot of neutral experiences. Okay, and that's all contained in our consciousness, how we interact with reality. Then we have discriminatory awareness, discrimination, they'll say as well, where we're a little bit further discerning. And sometimes they'll say the aggregated discernment. It's all the same. We're a little further, if I see the thing with pleasure and I gravitate to it, and then I'm getting a little clearer picture of it, of why I want that thing. I'm really going to go after that thing or avert from something that's painful. Discernment, okay? Then there is consciousness, which I mentioned, moments of mind. As we're just, it's one thing to have a thought, but that thought is made up of many, many moments of consciousness. And as I said, more subtle consciousness in a finger snap. In a finger snap, they say sometimes 64 moments of mind, 64 fluctuations of the consciousness. That's part of the mind. And we have compositional factors, and the 4th one, compositional factors, things that are a composite of other things, made up from other things. And it's kind of everything that's left over. Things like memory, love, hate, things like that, compositional factors. So that's our mind. So all those things are dissolving, absorbing. Okay. So in connection with this, there's certain outer and inner signs that manifest. And they're also explained in the 8 signs of dissolution. Okay. And when you meditate on the death process, you might imagine a scenario in which it's like a rehearsal of your own death, is in which you're really actively dying. So if I have time in longer death retreats, I will lead people through, it takes at least 45 minutes to really do it effectively, a meditation on your own death. That's not what we're going to do now, but a meditation on your own death can be really powerful for you yourself. And there are some on my website. I'll make a note to try to find you the link for that meditation, because you can just lie down, put yourself in a comfortable space, And I will find you one of those on, I know it's on one of my, the YouTube or something. I'll try to find that link for you. And what happens is you really want to rehearse it, meaning, you know, you could start with, you notice a lump in your neck. And this happens to people, right? You know, there's something not going right with your body. And you kind of wait, and you don't want to go to the doctor, and you don't want to know, and you slowly, a few days, weeks go by, and then you have to make the appointment, and you take yourself through the whole process. The biopsy, the doctor's visits, the testing, the MRIs, and the, whatever you're doing, and all that you go through until they tell you that there's nothing they can do and you're dying. Okay, and then you're going to take yourself slowly through the dying process of, if you've been, many of us have been with people actively dying. And there's people, especially, I did AIDS hospice work in the 80s in San Francisco, and we were teamed with people. And at that time, in the very beginning with AIDS, people died within 6 months. But a little bit later, they were living 2 years and then they died. It seemed to be a 2-year cycle. So I really got very close with this one man. I was with him for 2 years until he passed. And to really see slowly the phases that he went through. Like it was, I always said to him, I hope you're getting as much out of this as I'm getting out of this. Because I was an emotional support volunteer. But to really see, for instance, when he wasn't interested, first there's first phases where then he stopped going to work, couldn't work anymore. Okay. But then he stopped engaging with certain things in life. He didn't want to think about what they had to make for dinner that night. He left that to his lover. I don't want to do, I don't want to go food shopping anymore. And then he couldn't go food shopping. Like I remember his last walk outside. So you yourself are going to take yourself, if you like, on your last walk. Imagine where usually dying people know this is it. I had a few friends, sometimes they said, like, this is the last thing I'm going to eat. Like, I can't believe I can't eat anymore. I'm not going to be able to eat again. Like, they know what's going on. This is it. And everything's starting to withdraw. You're withdrawing from the external. This is a natural process. And the other thing that's interesting is you've been through this countless times. We've survived. We've survived death. It's amazing. Okay, but according to Buddhist belief with reincarnation, and I know we're not all convinced about that, but we've been through it before. The unfortunate part is we don't remember it. We don't remember. It's a kind of interesting setup of the mind of doesn't remember the birth process, the death process. Okay. Let's look at number 1, what happens. The earth element dissolves. Earth element dissolves. Earth element loses its power. The body becomes very thin. The limbs are loose, and you feel as if the body is sinking under the earth. Okay. Now you might say, but that's terrifying. But if you're aware that this is what happens, and you get that feeling, you'll be like, okay, yeah, the earth element's dissolving. For people that are aware and conscious, and do these meditations regularly, it's honestly less fearful. Again, you're prepared. You know this is going to happen. All of us a lot of people go to the dentist. A lot of people have fear of the dentist. And they put you in the chair and they raise the chair up and the light in your eyes and they put, but the thing is, you're familiar now with the dentist. So for a lot of people, there's less fear. You know what's going to go down there. Things like that. There's certain things we're used to now. We know what it's like. So this is the practice, okay? When the aggregative form dissolves, which is what happens is first one, the limbs become smaller, the body becomes weak and powerless, the luster of the body diminishes and all one's strength is consumed. Well, let me tell you something, it's happening to you right now, okay? You're not actively dying where it's really happening in a more exaggerated way, but we know as you get old, people shrink. Your bones contract. It's natural. Your skin changes. It loses its luster in a sense. You feel sometimes weaker. People are a little stooped over. It's a natural process. Aging is happening. I hate to break it to you, okay? And then we have various wisdoms that help our minds function and help us gain enlightenment, and they'll talk about which wisdom is dissolving. This one is mirror-like wisdom. I'm not going to go into all the wisdoms. That's a whole other teaching. But as a result, your sight becomes unclear and darker, like that. Our eye sense anyway, as we age, starts to change. If you're actively dying, you may not be able to close or open your eyes at this point. And this is what the internal sign is, a mirage-like image. So again, when I said if you're actively meditating on these visions every day, they come up in tantric practices, in highest yoga tantra practices. When we do what's called the meditation on the three kayas, we are more briefly meditating on these internal visions. The first one is a mirage-like image. So if you look out on hot asphalt road and you'll see the shimmering waves or water, it looks like water, as if water is all around you. That's your mind at this. And what you're going to do when you do this meditation, which I'm going to ask you to do this week, and I think it is in your materials of those dissolutions. There should be a sheet of the dissolutions, I think. Great, it's in one of the meditations. Thank you, Michael. Is you want to stay there slowly and do these meditations. So mirage-like image is the first thing. And it's not separate from your mind. It is your mind. It's your entire experience. You want to place your mind there and just keep it there for a few minutes, imagining, focusing there as best as you can. And with a little corner of your mind, you want to remind yourself, I'm not going to miss the clear light. Because it's that mirage-like image that tells you the clear light is coming. Mirage-like image. Okay. The next absorption, the water element, is dissolving. When the water element loses its power, all the fluids of the body dry up. Saliva, sweat, urine, blood. The aggregate of feeling absorbs. That's the pain, pleasure, neutral. That absorbs. You're not distinguishing that anymore. The body consciousness no longer experiences those types of feelings. And the wisdom of equality dissolves, which again, equality was where ordinary consciousness is mindful of pain, pleasure, neutral. It dissolves. You're no longer mindful of feelings accompanying that. Your ear sense doesn't function as much. You're not really that conscious of internal, external sounds, but the internal sign that manifests to your consciousness is an appearance of smoke, like a smoke-filled room. Smoke-filled room filled with a bluish gray smoke. And that's your entire experience. That is your mind. It's not separate from your mind. And you want to keep yourself focused on that. Again, as long as you can, slowly go through these visions and remind yourself a little bit, I'm not going to miss the clear light. This is all gross consciousness. Number 3, fire element dissolves. When the fire element loses its power, you can no longer digest food or drink. Okay. Heat begins to go from the body. The aggregate of discrimination absorbs. That's an aggregate in the mind. And you're no longer mindful of people around you, any affairs like that. The wisdom of analysis dissolves, and you no longer can remember names of close people. Your sense of smell goes, okay? And here your inhalation begins to become much weaker, the exhalation much stronger, longer, okay? The internal sign that appears at this point is an appearance of a spark-like sky, like fireflies in a night sky, and that's your entire experience. Sorry, somebody's saying, turn the pages near the computer. Okay, thank you. Be more cautious of that. Number 4, fourth dissolution, the wind element dissolves. When the wind element loses its power, the 10 winds move to the heart. So you've got subtle winds, upward moving subtle winds from the top part of your body. downward voiding subtle winds from the lower part of your body. This is subtle winds now, you know, not so much the gross body operating. They're the 5 winds coming down from the top, 5 winds coming up, and everything's coming into the heart center, okay? Aggregate of compositional factors absorbs. And at this point, you're mostly unable to perform any physical actions, actively dying. The wisdom of achieving activities dissolves. You're no longer mindful of any external worldly activities like that, anything like that. The tongue becomes thick and short. The root of the tongue may become blue or black. The internal sign that appears to you is like a candle that's sputtering and about to go out. It's the glow around that. And they'll say like a butter lamp or a candle, but it's about to go out and it's that glow around it. And that's your entire experience. And you're going to focus your mind on that. The 5th to the 8th signs of dissolution are the more subtle consciousness absorbing. So when the aggregate of consciousness absorbs, that's that last aggregate of the mind, the 80 conceptions dissolve. So these are just what makes up our consciousness. The wind in the right and left channels above the heart enter the central channel at the top of the head. Okay, so let me explain. In our subtle energy system, and this is more highest yoga tantra, completion stage practices, but I can definitely describe this to you. It's okay. You have subtle energy system and you have a central channel. The central channel is the diameter of a drinking straw, and it runs from the 3rd eye position in the middle of your forehead up to the crown chakra where it curves around, goes all the way back down, slightly more towards your spine, where its lower end rests about 4 finger widths below your navel. Central channel. Uma in Sanskrit. Uma Thurman, named after the middle way or the central channel. Okay, the actress, the American actress. It is basically bluish in color on the outside, but like a translucent tube of light. And best to visualize it like light, in the nature of light. Okay. Central channel. To its side are 2 side channels. Right channel, obviously, the left channel. The right channel is slightly reddish in color on the outside. The left is slightly whitish, but they are, again, translucent tubes of light, half the diameter of the central channel. They basically run pretty much alongside the central channel, but the right and left channels start at the right and left nostril respectively, going up, connecting with the central channel, curling around the crown, and then again, slightly more towards the back of the spine, towards your spine, where those lower ends curl and enter the central channel 4 finger widths below the navel. What we're really trying to do in completion stage practices is bring the winds from those central channels into the central channel in the right way. And then what happens when you do it effectively, when you do it with a body that is in good condition to support that, okay? Those visions, those internal visions that happen will automatically appear to your consciousness. That's really one of the aims of completion stage practices, to actualize higher states of realization. So now here's a couple of things. These visions, and well, let me finish the visions. Okay. So right now, this first more subtle vision that we're going to have is called white appearance. White appearance. This is not clear light. This is like a harvest moon, a full moon rising over an empty field, that milky kind of empty vacuity. And that's your internal experience. And that is when the winds in the right and left channels above the heart, so from the heart up, okay, enter the central channel here at the crown chakra, basically. And they enter there, and those winds start coming down, which is what the white drops coming down that central channel, okay, that causes this white appearance. Okay, so you have a white appearance, it's your whole subtle consciousness dissolving, subtle winds dissolving, is your entire experience. Next vision is called a red increase, okay? The cause of this is the winds in the right and left channels below the heart enter the central channel at the base of the spine. Red drops coming up cause a red increase. And Rinpoche described it to me once, sitting at the Japanese temple in his room at sunset with the big Japanese Buddha. If you've ever been to Bodh Gaya, big Japanese Buddha statue there outside the window, and there was the most incredible sunset. Magenta, orange, pink, streaking red. And Rinpoche, we were talking about these visions, and Rinpoche said, the red increase, it's like this. I never forgot that, because it was really effective for mine. It's like this. So it's that kind of incredible sunset of red, magenta, orange. You know, that's your entire experience of the red increase. Keeping your mind focused there. The next vision is called the black near attainment. Black near attainment. This is as black can be, okay? And this is where the upper and lower winds gather at the heart, and the winds begin to enter the drop at the heart. And again, and for some people that are really fully absorbed into this meditation, they may pass out at this point. You may have unconsciousness, okay? So again, we're trying to control our minds not to pass out, but again, until we can control the mind, sometimes people faint during this part. Not a bad sign, but we're trying to control it more than that. The eighth vision, the mind of clear light dawns. Black near attainment dissolves. All the winds dissolve into the very subtle life-bearing wind in the indestructible drop at the heart. It's not at the heart, the organ. It's in the center of the heart chakra. So we have energy centers in this subtle energy system called chakras. Chakra means in Sanskrit, wheel. And you can feel them in your body sometimes. So we have some of the more distinct ones are at our crown, throat, heart, navel, sexual organs. And so sometimes you get gripped with fear or something, and you feel something in your stomach around your navel. You feel gripping in your heart. Sometimes your throat constricts. Sometimes you get a pinging or, sensation at your crown. Those are energy centers. So the one at the heart, everything's dissolving into that. And technically, in the Tibetan Buddhist system, we talk about the heart mind, because the mind in its most subtle experience is really located in our life as well at the heart center. So inside the central part of the heart chakra, the very center of it, is an indestructible drop. In that indestructible drop is contained the most subtle wind, that's some kind of energy presence, physical form, mounted on that, the most subtle mind, not physical, but they have a way of riding together and being together. And what will happen is at the death time, actively dying, when the consciousness is leaving, which takes up to 3 days in the Tibetan system, the indestructible drop finally will open. That most subtle wind, as we say, leaves the body with that most subtle mind off into what's called an in-between state, a bardo. Bardo is a Sanskrit term that simply means in between. And what you're in between is the life you're leaving and your next rebirth. You then have 49 days to traverse through that bardo with a bardo being's body, which is more subtle than our body, our human body. So it can pass through walls, things like that. But mainly for most ordinary human beings, that bardo being's existence is dictated, catapulted, based on the karmic imprints in that consciousness, completely sending it uncontrollably into a state simply looking for the next rebirth that is dictated by those karmic imprints, by the seeds in the consciousness. So you uncontrollably end up, whatever those seeds cause, that's the rebirth that you'll take. What kind of rebirth it's causing you to take, you will be looking for that for up to 49 days. You can short circuit that thing and come out of it. And every 7 days in that Bardo experience, you have a mini transition, like a mini death, not as dramatic as getting out of this life, but you do have a mini transition until you finally meet the conditions that satisfy what those karmic causes are for you to take rebirth. Okay, and then suddenly conception takes place again, and the mind is there at that time. So a couple things I wanted to say about the subtle, and then I'll take some questions about the subtle body in these 3 channels, the central channel and the right and left channel. We did a Tumo retreat years ago at Vajrapani with Reba Rinpoche, and we were asking questions, and Rinpoche was describing what we should meditate on and what to visualize. And the other thing that was interesting during this retreat is he restricted the retreat to 21 people. I was the director of the center at the time, and please understand how hard it was in an area that had a huge Dharma community to only be allowed secretly to invite 21 people to this retreat. I mean, it was brutal. And fortunately, I didn't seem to make any enemies as a result, because what happens is we had a lot of couples in the region. And with the couples, one was more the practitioner who always came to programs, and the other one didn't. But when we explained the kind of retreat, of course, they both wanted to come. So I had to kind of check people off the list, and it was very challenging. But the entire, I think it was a 10-day retreat, because of the way we were meditating with these subtle channels, and we were completely blissed out the entire time. And there's photos of us, kind of everybody's just like in a state. Amazing. It was really amazing. But what Rinpoche said in answer to one of the questions once about the central channel, the location of the central channel, somebody was really trying to pinpoint how we would feel it. And then Rinpoche said, well, because the central channel is not something you can cut the body open and see it. It's subtle. So we have this subtle energy network going in the body right now with all these different channels and winds that, if you're a surgeon and you open the body, you're not going to see things like that. But they do have a response with our mind. Our mind interacts with that. So then Rinpoche said at one point, well, there's also a theory that the central channel and the 2 side channels actually don't exist. But through visualization of them, it's a good process to bring the winds in a certain way that actualize these visions, but really actualize higher states of realization. So that was very interesting to hear. There's always variations in Tibetan Buddhism. And the nice thing I find about that is what it really tells us is our minds need to be flexible, right? We get very rigid stances. And I usually find this among newer students, myself included when I was newer, where you hear something and then people say, well, no, this is how it is. Lama Zopa said, and this is how it is for all time. But often when I've met with different lamas, and they all have variations, even hand mudras and different things, and they'll go, well, we learned this, and Sarah May's version is this, and Sarah J. version is this. So it really taught my mind about flexibility. Of course, we don't want to do things too far from what is accurate. We want to learn an accurate way, but you get a transmission from a certain lineage and then practice that lineage. That's fine, like that. So again, these visions are going to happen when you're dying, but here's the other thing about these visions, is they happen now for you. But if you're not recognizing them, it's simply because you're not familiar enough with them. That's why they are in Tantric practice. Tantric practices, some of us have commitments to do several Tantric sadhanas a day, short or long. Sadhana is a Sanskrit word that means method of accomplishment. So meaning by doing this practice, I will accomplish that deity. I will become that deity, that aspect of the Buddha. And in these Tantric practices, there is this, what's called meditating on the 3 kayas, the 3 forms of the Buddha, 3 bodies of the Buddha. And in that process come these visions. You would take the time to slowly, really spending time every day. His Holiness says he does these visions about 6 or 8 times a day. They come in his practices. I also do them several times a day, like that, to familiarize the mind. But this is when these visions happen for you now. When you fall asleep every night, they are there. And because the mind goes from a grosser experience, sleep is a more subtle mental experience, like that. There is like that clear light does manifest there, but we don't often catch it. When you wake up in the morning, the visions happen in reverse. The same thing when you're taking rebirth. When the conception is happening, the visions happen in reverse. And then the conception is there and the cells start replicating. These visions also happen if you have a very, very big yawn, a very strong sneeze, because they're like mini deaths. When you have sexual orgasm, the visions happen as well, like that. So again, that's one of the reasons that can inspire us to want to take tantric empowerment, to keep our vows, learn the tantric vows, keep them well, and to be able to practice tantra effectively, because it can shortcut the path. Because with completion stage practices of tantra, we're working with the subtle energy in our system. Questions? Any questions?
Yes,
Nathan.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Venerable Amy, you were saying that, I wondered if you could please clarify about the 49 days that you mentioned after death, that the soul is in the Bardo realm. And does that mean that after the 49 days, the soul is reborn or reincarnated? Is it that quick of a turnover?
Yes.
Or did I miss? It is.
It's a maximum of 49 days according to Tibetan system. I would be cautious when you use the word soul, because I really ask people, what do you mean by soul? So I would talk about it as a bardo being, like that. And again, it could be the same as what you mean by soul, but sometimes people think of a soul as like an everlasting, unchanging kind of entity. So you have to be specific to what you mean by soul, because some people have different notions about soul. But you're basically what I'd call an in-between being. You know, you're in between two lives and you're there looking for this. So it's a maximum, according to Tibetan tradition, of 49 days. You can cut out of that period shorter, more quickly. And here's ways you can cut out more quickly. If you have lived the most incredibly virtuous life, and you have done some amazingly virtuous things in your life, and you might just, like, you die and you go right to what's called a pure realm. A pure realm is not a God realm, because a God realm is in cyclic existence in one of the 6, variations of cyclic existence. God realms are very pleasurable, but you use up a lot of merit there. But a pure realm is more like a heaven, where you have every perfect condition to practice Dharma. And people, usually in pure realms, you are getting enlightened very quickly from there. You have every perfect thing like that. And you don't necessarily are not going to fall back into kind of an ordinary. You have a lot of good karma, a lot of positive, virtuous imprints in your mind. The other way you can also shortcut the bardo is from intensely evil things, horrible things you've done, deeds, where you can just quickly end up in a hell realm, like that, lower realm of existence very quickly. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, yes, I think so, Venerable Amy. But I have another question now.
Sure.
If it's that in theory that quick of a turnover for the soul or person or consciousness of 49 days, what happens? Some people believe that if you see or hear the ghost or spirit of a loved one after those 49 days, that would mean that that's definitely an illusion or a delusion, and not a real connection with the person who died. Or what do you think about that?
Yes, I do know people that have experiences of seeing ghosts or experiencing, a loved one that comes to them and things. I don't know what that is. And I've asked lamas and I haven't really gotten an answer to, is it because you're so attached to the person that you, in your mind, conjure them up, and you think you see them? Could it be another entity that's kind of playing on that you interpret it's your loved one? I'm not really sure what does happen in that space where after the 49 days, you think you're seeing the person like that. There is a hungry ghost realm, a preta realm. Preta is Sanskrit. In English, it would be grasping spirit or hungry ghost. And there's 6 realms of cyclic existence, 3 lower realms, 3 upper realms. So the lower realms start with the top of it is the animal realm, then the preta, the hungry ghost realm, and then the hell realms. And the upper realms are human at the bottom, and then a jealous God realm, and then a hedonistic God realm. And those make up the 6 realms of cyclic existence. So the preta realm, you know, are ghosts and things like that, and they do manifest and they cross over where sometimes we experience them, we can see them. So it could be something like that. Maybe your loved one is in that kind of realm and they're trying to make contact with you. I really don't know. Yeah. And sometimes we'll call the bardo, we'll call them an intermediate state being as well, like a bardo being or an intermediate state being. They're intermediate, they're in an intermediate in-between phase like that. And let's see if I have anything else I wanted to say. And it's the same every 7 days. When you go through these mini deaths, you're going to go through these visions again that happen as if, you know, again, not as dramatic as getting out of this body. And at 49 days, then definitely a rebirth would be taken. It's an interesting system, isn't it? You know, all the different spiritualities have their system of what they believe, and you know, it is interesting. Other questions or comments? Okay.
Well, yes, I have another question, Venerable
Sure.
Amy. Sorry I hope I'm not taking up other people's time, but no, I'm very interested in you know, what Buddhism has to say about the afterlife. That's why I'm taking this course. And so, just to be clear, though, so after you mentioned all these different levels of like deity heavens or pure realms and possible lower realms that the consciousness can go to after death, is it the case that it's like 49 days of bardo and then they go to those other higher or lower realms, or are those other realms part of the bardo?
Right.
Or...
Those realms technically are not part of the bardo, but you would at any time in increments of 7 or definitely at 49 days, you would then take another rebirth, and meaning you would start the conception of that rebirth. So it could be an animal rebirth, and you would just, the conception would happen, you know, to 2 animals. You could, a preta realm is slightly different. The hell realms are very different because you're not taking rebirth, you know, you just end up, you immediately awaken in a hell realm. This is what they teach. Now, here's the thing. So we have 6 realms. Starting at the top, hedonistic God realm. All you're experiencing is pleasure. Now, when I got into Buddhism and I heard about that God realm, I thought that's where I wanted to go. Okay, be very careful for what you wish for. Okay, you use up a lot of merit in that God realm. It's not an enlightened space. You have very little ability to practice Dharma. Why? Because you're so blissed out. There's no reason. So you're not making good imprints about Dharma. You're not enlightened. You will die. And when you die at the end of your life, you suffer greatly. The gods cast you out. Your body starts smelling. It loses its luster. All the pleasure goes. And suddenly you start looking at a lower rebirth. And the reason is because you've used up so much merit by experiencing all that pleasure. So you don't want to end up in a God realm, but it certainly would be better than the lower realms. The next God realm down is a jealous God realm. So in Sanskrit, there's the Shuras and then there's the Asuras, you know, and so they always keep looking at the hedonistic gods with great competitiveness and anger and resentment and strife, fighting and being jealous about them and their existence. but they also have a very easy kind of life otherwise. Then you have the human realm, and that's our realm. The human realm is the optimum realm from which to get enlightened. And the reason is you have a great setup of your body that functions well to work with the subtle energy system. And you have a balance of leisure and suffering. So the leisure affords you time and space to practice and work with your mind and transform your mind. The suffering motivates you to want to practice Dharma. Then the lower realms, animal realm is a lower realm of existence. People will debate me and tell me how intelligent their dog is. I know your dog may be very intelligent. I get it. I've lived with many animals that were very highly evolved. I see none of them opening up a Dharma book and studying. They may wander into a gompa, right? And we had cats at Milarepa that seemed to love to wander into the gompa right when we were meditating, of course, to distract us, as cats do, right? But they really don't understand Dharma. You know, sometimes I'd hold them up to a statue and they would be afraid. I had a cat that used to follow me around the Vajrapani Stupa, the shrine there, but it would follow me around out of attachment to me, kind of afraid, not understanding why it, you know, the purpose of walking around a stupa. But that was a good imprint I could do for the cat because I knew she'd follow me around. So I would walk around and she would follow me. She would run from corner to corner, like one corner afraid and then look for me and then run to the next corner. But she still went around the stupa many times. So animals don't really understand. I think being a service animal is at the peak of the animal realm. But really, if you check out the animal realm, your domestic pets that you love so much and let sleep in your bed, right? And is the very top of the pyramid of the animal realm. Most animals live in the sea or are in the insect realm, and that's vast. And if you really check up on wild animals and their existence, they spend their time eating, sometimes killing to eat, sleeping, fighting with other animals, mating, going to the bathroom. That's basically the animal realm. Pretty much what they're doing. So like that. The next lower realm down is the Preta or hungry ghost realm, craving, grasping spirits. What creates the cause for you to get into the animal realm is a lot of laziness, sleeping a lot during the day, unless you have a night shift job. What creates the cause for you to get into the Preta realm is intense desire, grasping, and dissatisfaction to an intense amount. And these are beings, though, the interesting part of the Preta realm is you can listen to the Dharma. You can hear the Dharma and get Dharma teachings. They have the intelligence to do that, Pretas, but basically they're so consumed with hunger and thirst and not having any ability to connect with whole food, quality food. For them, if they get to the river, and this is the way our different mental manifestations will work, if you come to a river, a god may see the river full of ambrosia, ambrosial nectar to drink. A human will see water in the river. A Preta will see a dry river bed. That's what their consciousness creates. So you want to think about this is coming from your mind. Nobody's doing it to you according to Buddhism. No one else created this experience for you other than the karmic imprints in your consciousness made by your body, speech, and mind, made by activities of your body, speech, and mind. So the Pretas basically are so consumed with trying to find one little morsel of a piece of food, and because they're so starving, and they have skinny little necks and swollen bodies and bulging eyes, and when they walk their limbs spark and they're very painful. And in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands, you can read extensive details about these different realms. The lowest of the realms is the hell realms. And yes, this is where I lose all the Catholics in the class. We do have hell realms. They're different than the Catholic hells. So not only do we have burning hot hells that are traditional hells, right? We have freezing cold hells. We have a variety of hells for you, okay? So again, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand will describe all the different hell realms. What gets you into hell realms generally is things like sadistic killing, incredibly harmful acts with great torture and things like that. And what happens is all of these realms are temporary. All of the realms are temporary. And you are simply in this realm based on karma that caused it. And as you exhaust that karma by suffering, for instance, in the lower realms, then when you exhaust enough karma, you then will move out to another realm. It doesn't necessarily mean you will move to the next one up, because karma is very intricate and sophisticated. So you could have another positive karma suddenly ripening, positive deed ripening that springs you from a hell realm into a human realm. You may bounce in a hell realm for a moment because you murdered someone, but you had an incredibly pure intention. So again, the murder is a negative act, or you accidentally murdered someone, but you had no intention, you purified, you made amends. So you may have a short visit of, because it's still a negative act, if you hadn't purified first, and then come back into a better realm like that. So again, they are temporary situations. Now, again, on planet Earth, we sometimes seem to experience somebody that seems to be in a prey, like the animal realm we interact with regularly, but sometimes you'll see a starving person. You'll see something on the news or something, and they look like pretas. So it's like they are on planet Earth, but it looks like a preta realm. And sometimes you'll see people with severe mental illness that, think that they're burning up, that they're burning alive. And that's like, their mind is in a hell realm. But we see them living, like I had to visit somebody once in a mental institution, and I walked by somebody's bed in a ward, and this man, it was like 70 degrees, 75 degrees in the temperature in the room. And he was under all these blankets, shivering, freezing to death. His lips were blue. He was that was his mental experience. Like he was in a cold realm, cold hell realm. So sometimes I think you could end up on Earth that we interact, but your mind is in a hell realm, really. Even though they say the hell realms are actual places, sometimes I've also heard it's a state of mind. So does that answer your question, Nathan?
Yes, thank you, Venerable Amy.
So it's something to think about. Let's just think about it this week. I'm going to stop there tonight. What I'd like you to do this week, if you can, please look at the meditation on and I will remind you exactly what it is. It's about the dissolutions, but I want to get you on the right one, which has been given out in the materials. And it is, okay, here we go. It's number 4, and it's the actual death process and Lamiashi's Om Ahong meditation. We're going to do that one next week, but basically really think about these aspects of death as it goes through the meditation, where it does say, as my earth element dissolves, my body becomes thin. So it describes a little bit, read that part over, but then it'll say, I no longer hear internal sounds. To my mind, there appears a vision of smoke, for instance, the second vision. And then what I'd like you to do is stay on the vision, a few minutes on each vision, and really that all that's appearing to your consciousness, as if you're in a room filled with wispy, blue, gray smoke. That's your whole experience. So you're absorbing your mind into that visualization. The whole mind concentrated there. That's when you want to use your shine at that point, your calm abiding, to place your mind there. So please go through that meditation. And then if you'd like, please read Heart Spoon. Would be really nice. And another piece you can also read, Reincarnation by Geshe Rapton as part of our readings. And the Transference of Consciousness at the Time of Death by Lamiashi. Transference of Consciousness at the Time of Death, sometimes called POA. So there's a couple readings like that that you can look at this week. They're not so long, so certainly. So we are going to meet next week, and then we have a week's break. So what's really nice is you'll have had 5 sessions. And for those of you that want to complete the class, if you can, it would be a really great time to finish the readings, because you have that week break, and finish the readings, go through the meditation. So for instance, if you're doing the death dissolution and you want to do the completion, you'd really be doing that meditation like 3 or 4 times this week. That's how they really want you to complete, so that you're really familiar with it. Like that'd be really helpful. And, or you can go back through any of the other meditations if it's helpful. So Sarah's saying let's see, let's make sure we have everybody. Which document can I find the readings in? Michael, can you help and get her Sarah to get her the right documents? We had given them out the past weeks. There we go. Thank you so much. That's
thank you.
And if she has the readings, I don't know if she has the readings as well, but they were given out in past weeks.
Okay, I think I have them. If they were emailed, then okay, thank
Should
you.
have been emailed. Yes, wonderful. But let Michael know. If not, contact Christina or Michael and LMB to make sure you have everything you need, Sarah. That would be great. Wonderful. Thank you for joining. Let's dedicate the merit. And I'm going to bring up and share my screen of a few of the COVID dedications Rinpoche likes, as we've been doing. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, here we go. So I'd like to invest whatever positive energy we've created from our time together today to really invest it, because the planet's having a really hard time with COVID, as we know, and other issues. Can we help to decrease this pandemic immediately all over the planet? Can the vaccinations increase for those that would like, so that we can really not have any more mutations that keep spreading really difficultly? And those who have COVID, may they be healed instantly. And those who've passed away in the last 49 days of COVID or something else, may they immediately take a good rebirth to get enlightened to benefit all. Janju Senjod Rinpoche, Mage Panam Ge Gyurchik, Ke Banyamba Me Bayi, Gone Gondu Belwarsho. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses, without exception of transmigratory beings, never occur again. In all my lives never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Let's go to this meditation with emptiness. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. So whatever understanding you have of emptiness, just reflect for a moment. And the brief King of Prayers, this is the brief version of it. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. And the long life prayers for our precious teachers, for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling Joel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the excuse me, the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manju Nath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long.